Well, everyone's frustration. We've got a flat tyre and now we need to replace this tyre because obviously you can't drive on it when it's flat. In fact, if you drive on it while it's flat like this, you're going to damage the tyre, you could potentially damage the wheel. And if it's just got a nail in it, we might be able to fix this tyre and reuse it. Whereas if you drive on it, the tyre will be rendered useless. So how do you replace a flat tyre? Let's go through the process now and I'll walk you through it, and that way you'll know how to do it too. So for the vast majority of motor vehicles, the spare tyre is actually situated in the boot of the vehicle, particularly on a hatchback like this. But if you're on a utility or something like that, most likely, or an SUV, it's most likely going to be up underneath the back of the vehicle. So it's really important you know where to find your spare tyre. And in this case, it's located in the boot area here, along with the toolkit to also change your tyre. So what we're going to do now is just pull this tyre out of the vehicle. There's a little screw that holds it down in the middle. It's a locating screw. So we undo that. Just be careful lifting this out of the vehicle. Got a little bit stuck. They are quite heavy, so you wouldn't want to do a back injury trying to pull this thing out. There we go. So one thing I recommend you do is get yourself some wheel chocks like this. They're really important to ensure that your vehicle is stable when you're going to be taking that tyre off. So how it works is you just get some wedges like that, and one goes in front of the tyre like that and one behind. And the reason we do that is to make sure that the vehicle doesn't move back or forth while we're on the jack. Now it's important to put the wheel chock on the opposite tyre to what you're replacing. So with us, we're putting the left-hand tyre on, we're replacing that at this point in time. We want to put these wheel chocks on the right-hand side. So keep it the same each side. That way your vehicle's going to be safe and you're going to be safe. If you haven't got ones that you can make yourself out of timber like that, make sure it's hardwood or something like that if you're going to do it. Just go to somewhere like Super Cheap Auto or Repco or one of those auto retailers. They'll be able to sell you a wheel chock set that should be in with your spare tyre, just in case you need to do this on the side of the road. So now we've got our spare tyre out of the vehicle and we're ready to put it on to replace the tyre that's gone flat. Assuming you can't get this tyre pumped up where you're located. This tyre here was in the spare. You can see it's brand new. It's got air in it, which is great. That's something you should always check, is your spare tyre has air in it. It's inflated. And you should be checking that every time you put air in your tyres, just to make sure. And you don't have to actually pump the tyre itself up, but you do need to check to make sure it's got air in it. Every now and then it should be checked, and it should be checked every time you get a service. So make sure you ask your service personnel to check your spare tyre for you as well. That's really important when this sort of situation arises. So let's go ahead and get this on there and get ourselves moving again. So the first thing you're going to need to be able to get the wheel off is a wheel brace like this. So it would be in your toolkit and it looks something along like that. It's got a long bar on it with a hexagonal end on it which goes onto your wheel nut. So that's what we're going to use now. We're going to break these wheel nuts before we jack the vehicle up, because once it's jacked up you won't be able to get the wheel nut broken because the tyre will just want to spin. So it's important we just break them. We don't want to take the wheel nuts off, we just want to crack them now. So it's a bit like this. It's always better to lift it up, back straight, and put some weight on it to be able to break that. So there you go, comes off fairly easy. I don't want to fully undo that, I just want to break them, right? So that way, that one there was a bit tighter. If you find one of these are too tight that you can't lift and get that off, you can put an extension on the end of this to make it longer, or you can push it in such a way where it's down and use your foot on it like that to actually break it. So this is our jack. Comes in the carry case that's located in the boot of your vehicle. Now, where we want to get it is right under this part of the sill, right here. So that's where it has to go. And we've got to make sure that the jack is in the right position, because if it's not, you can damage your vehicle if you put this in the wrong part of the sill. And what you'll see is under here is a reinforced section with a couple of cutouts in it. And that's where the jack should be located. So our jack fits in there nicely. and we now start to wind the jack up. So there we are, it's in place, it's on good solid ground. If it was a gravel surface or anything like that here, or a soft dirt surface, we'd want to put a piece of timber or something like that underneath to secure it. So it's very important when you're choosing where your vehicle is going to have its wheel change that you actually choose the right location. Now on the wheel brace that we used to take that off before, there's a slot in it that fits onto your handle here, and that allows you to turn your jack. So good technique. Make sure until you get a bit of load on the jack, you keep it square so it doesn't actually start to move around like that. These things are always a bit awkward. They're not really perfectly designed. You know, as a motor mechanic, I hate using them. They're not efficient. They're not really well thought about. So you just got to bear with it and do your best. It's not that much of a strain. Take your time with it, but we do need to make sure we get this tyre up off the ground. Now, this is why it's important that we've got that other side chocked, because as soon as this tyre comes off the ground, you've lost the grip that park brake is actually giving it. Now, you can have a look under the tyre, make sure there's clearance between the tyre and the ground. Remember, a flat tyre, it's going to be less clearance than a new tyre, so you need to give it a bit more height to be able to get the new tyre off, or the tyre that's not flat on. Right. Now, we've got that up. What we can do is go ahead and remove the wheel nuts. Now in this case, we have an alloy wheel that we're using to that we have to replace. If this had a hubcap on there, you'd have to take the hubcap off to access these wheel nuts. Once you get the tyre off, you're going to need to take this centre cap off, fit it to the spare tyre. That is, unless of course you're going to put that tyre back on after you get the current one repaired. So if you want to keep this spare on from now, you'll need to also add this centre cap to the new tyre. So we'll do that. Okay, if the tyre's been driven on while it's flat and it's come apart, just make sure that you check under here that nothing has been damaged as a part of that. Never ever put your head under the guard while it's up on a jack. That's probably the dumbest thing you can do, just in case that jack fails and the vehicle comes down. I have seen people have cars come down on top of them. So once we position the new or the spare wheel in place, we now got to go ahead and put the wheel nuts back on. So wheel nuts are back on. Just do them up by hand first. Make sure you get them to start the thread. Just remember, tidy-righty. To do a wheel nut up, you turn it to the right. To loosen it, you turn it to the left. So it's important. Turn it to the left, nothing's going to happen. So try and do them up by finger as much as you can. It's just going to save you a lot of grief. And then you can get your wheel brace and start and slowly tighten them up. So literally the opposite of what you did to loosen them is what we're going to do now to tighten them. Nip them up a little bit. So letting the jack down is the opposite of what we did to put it up. Slowly but surely get the vehicle back on the ground. Right, so once that's come down onto the ground, remove the jack, put it back in its carry, and the wheel brace, we now need to tighten these wheel nuts up properly. So, you don't want to over tighten them, but you want to put enough force, it's not going to come undone. And you go diagonal, so you have to do this one, go down to this one, up to this one, down to the bottom one, and over to that. Now all we got to do, put this tyre back into the back of the vehicle, the flat tyre, so we can get it to a service centre, get that tyre repaired. So you've got a spare, they can switch it back over for you if you want them to, but this will get you going, and you've done it safe. Don't forget to remove your wheel chocks. That, ladies and gentlemen, is how you replace a flat tyre.